This program is brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
For the fourth consecutive day, the Iraqi government continues its military offensive, dubbed Sawat al-Fursan, the Charge of the Knights, which was launched against armed militias and fighters of the Mediate army. Today, heavy fighting erupted between the Iraqi forces and the Mediate army in Sadr city near Baghdad. Backed by U.S. warplanes and helicopters, the Iraqi forces carried out assaults on the positions of the Mediate army in the city of Basra in southern Iraq.
The situation is still raging in Iraq, where the fierce confrontations between the Iraqi forces and the Mahdi army have not let up. The fighting continues in various southern Iraqi cities, including Kut, Hila, Nasiriyah, Diwaniyah, Imara, and Karbala. In addition, clashes erupted in 13 populated neighborhoods in Baghdad. Meanwhile, the Green Zone in Baghdad, which includes the headquarters of the Iraqi government as well as the U.S. Embassy, was not spared from the hell of war, as it came under mortar attacks. Also in the Green Zone, a mortar shell hit the office of Iraqi Vice President Tariq al-Hashimi, killing 2 of his security guards and injuring several others. In an attempt to contain the situation, the Iraqi Authority declared a 3-day curfew in Baghdad and neighboring areas. More than 130 people have been killed since the Iraqi government launched its military operation last Tuesday. Through the operation, the Iraqi government wants to crack down on armed Mahdi militias loyal to Shia leader Muqtada al-Sadr. Meanwhile, the Iraqi parliament held an emergency session to discuss ways to help end the fighting between the Iraqi-backed government forces and the Mahdi army. The Iraqi government is exerting efforts to contain the situation and end the violence, which has spread to several Iraqi cities.
The general situation is tense and politically charged. We are exerting a tremendous amount of efforts to clarify the picture and gather the information necessary to adopt a resolution by the parliament.
Meanwhile, the U.S. forces continue to surround Sadr city in preparation to invade it. This comes amidst reports that the Iraqi Prime Minister Noor al-Maliki vowed to continue the military operation in order to disarm the militias, which are using their weapons against the government. Al-Maliki said he will neither stop the fighting nor engage in a political dialogue with those he described as criminal gangs. The Iraqi government is facing a big challenge in light of the new security developments witnessed in the country. Although it's enjoying the support of the U.S., the Iraqi government is facing a difficult test, which the various political blocs and coalitions are not making any easier. Will the al-Maliki government be able to pass the test and overcome the crisis with minimum losses?
Confrontations between the al-Sadr movement and government forces continues in Basra city. American planes participated in the raid operations.
4 أيام منذ بدأت العملية العسكرية المتعثرة حتى الآن في البصرة.
It has been 4 days since the stumbling military operation began in Basra, with the participation of American planes and direct support from the British forces. Al-Arabiya obtained information saying that the United States has asked Iran to use its influence in order to stop the acts of violence in Basra. According to a Sadr movement, influential Iraqi politicians who have strong relations with Tehran have been exerting efforts to stop the fighting, especially after the humanitarian situation has significantly deteriorated in the city. Also, representatives from Maliki's government are in contact with the Sadr movement, which said that it will not stop attacking the Iraqi army until Maliki and his brother-in-law leave Basra. While a Sadr movement receives notable support from its former opponent, the Fadlallah party, which rules Basra, al-Maliki has been facing pressure from some of his allies to stop this operation. The objective of this operation is to enforce security in a city that has a complex party and tribal relations, not to mention the international and regional intervention. A Sadr movement representative in Basra complained that the military operation is singling them out of all the other parties, which also have militias. He said that the military operation started on Monday without any warning, while they were negotiating with the government within the framework of the Basra Support Council. It has been 4 days since the fierce fighting began. So far, more than 125 bodies have arrived to health centers in Basra, in addition to the bodies that have not been buried yet. Sadr supporters control most of al-Basra's areas, especially at Taniya, whose residents received warning from the army to leave their homes and evacuate the area. Perhaps this is an indication that the fighting will decrease if the mediation efforts work. Najah Muhammad Ali, Al-Arabiya.
Najah Muhammad Ali, Al-Arabiya.
The other topic that we will address today is the escalating situation in the southern Iraqi cities. Mass demonstrations were held against the occupation in different parts of the Iraqi capital of Baghdad. In Sadr city in eastern Baghdad, Iraqis organized a demonstration condemning the American shelling of residential areas and home raids. They demanded that the detainees be released and that the siege on the city be ended.
This is the third day of demonstrations and condemnation of the occupation forces all over the streets of Baghdad. A number of demonstrations were held in the streets of the Iraqi capital.
Planes are bombing us and protesters are being beaten, which shows that the slogan of democracy that was claimed by the occupation forces is fake. The masses are demanding their rights in a democratic manner. They want the detainees to be released and the random home raids to end. These are legitimate demands. The masses are still committed to using peaceful means.
The occupation forces carried out wide-scale arrests and raids in all of Iraq's cities, especially in the heroic Al-Sadr city and the resilient freedom-fighting city Al-Shuwala.
The protesters demanded that the siege imposed by the occupation forces on the Sadr city in western Baghdad be stopped. They also demanded putting an end to the arrests and military operations carried out by the occupation.
We condemn the siege imposed on the courageous Al-Sadr city. This city has sacrificed honorable blood.
The protesters had a number of demands, including improving public services and the withdrawal of American forces. They also demanded the right to hold public demonstrations, which is their constitutional right.
We first ask that the continued violations and random arrests be stopped. Secondly, we demand that the detainees be released. Thirdly, we will have a much bigger reaction. So far, we have only been holding peaceful demonstrations.
The security situation in the capital witnessed disturbances due to the clashes between armed groups and the Iraqi security forces, which spread in the main streets. The security situation in the capital witnessed disturbances due to the clashes between armed groups and Iraqi security forces, which spread in the main streets and erected checkpoints. Mass demonstrations spread in the Iraqi capital of Baghdad to hold the funeral procession for the victims of the occupation. During these demonstrations, people were chanting slogans against the occupation and its intervention in their civil lives. From the Iraqi capital of Baghdad, Haidar Qasim, Al-Alam.
The Honorable Sheikh Muqtada al-Sadr called on the Mahdi army to remain committed to the order of freezing army activities and thanked them for that. Al-Sadr's announcement came during Friday's prayer sermon, which was held by Sheikh Hassan al-Thari at the Kufa Mosque.
The Honorable Sheikh Muqtada al-Sadr, may God honor him, called on all Muslim true believers to remain committed to the order of freezing armed activities and thank them for that.
In addition, Muqtada al-Sadr called on all sides to adopt peaceful solutions and said it is taboo to shed Iraqi blood.
The Honorable Leader Muqtada al-Sadr, may God honor him, calls on all Iraqis to resort to nonviolence and find peaceful solutions. He also urges all sides to refrain from spilling Iraqi blood, as it's a taboo.
ولمزيد من التفاصيل ينضم إلينا عبر الهاتف مدير مكتب السيد الشهيد.
For more information on the topic, we are joined by phone with the head of Sadr's office, Mazen Sakti. Honorable Sheikh Sakti, welcome. In several of his speeches, Muqtada al-Sadr strongly called on all sides to spare Iraqi blood. Can you clarify what Muqtada al-Sadr was implying in his speeches?
In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Praise the Lord, and peace and prayers be upon the Prophet Muhammad. The Sadr faction and its leader Muqtada al-Sadr have always called for sparing the Iraqi blood. Al-Sadr is holding the security switch that will help stop the bloodshedding among Iraqis. Al-Sadr faction is committed to ending the violence. Unfortunately, the Iraqi government has not committed itself toward ending the violence. The Iraqi government wants to spill the blood of a Sadr faction, and what is happening in Basra is proof of that. We have been calling for a truce and a political solution. However, the Prime Minister continues to oppose all political solutions because he wants to implement the agendas of the occupation.
Honorable Sheikh, if you allow me, the Prime Minister made several announcements saying that the government does not target the al-Sadr movement. The government targeted some members that were creating disturbances and those who were committing crimes. This is what the government said about the targeted individuals in Basra.
This is not true. The announcements were only meant for public consumption. On the ground, these announcements do not mean anything. Sadr supporters have always supported the political process and the security forces everywhere. Sadr supporters fought alongside the government forces side by side when security breaches took place in Basra by Yemeni supporters. However, what happened in Karbala and the random killings against the Sadr supporters in Diwaniyah and other provinces made Sadr supporters lose confidence in the government. Of course, the military operation that has been taking place in Basra has targeted members of the movements, just like it did in Karbala, Diwaniyah, and the rest of the provinces.
The head of al-Sadr's office, thank you very much.
The British government has admitted that its soldiers abused the human rights of 9 Iraqi civilians in 2003. One of them, Baha Musa, a hotel receptionist, died of injuries received while in detention in Basra. The admission comes after more than 3 years of investigation that's already cost about $40 million, and the victims' families are now looking for compensation. Tim Friend reports.
Baha Musa's father has waited a long time for this day. He and his son's children and wife thought that justice would elude them, but now they have the admission they wanted. In a statement, Musa's father said, "It seemed as if the Ministry of Defence wanted to cover the truth and thought that Iraqi lives were cheap. This admission shows that our voices can still be heard and that Iraqi lives do count." Musa had 93 identifiable injuries on his body and suffered asphyxiation. The British government is to admit the breaches of Article 3 of the Human Rights Convention, which guarantees the right to life and prohibits torture.
The government announcement follows a long-running battle in the British courts. In the end, the law lords overturned a contention by the Ministry of Defence that the European human rights laws did not apply to British forces serving overseas. It left the government with little choice but to apologise and offer compensation.
The Armed Forces Minister said, "I deeply regret the actions of a very small number of troops, and I offer my sincere apologies and sympathy to the family of Baha Musa and the other 8 Iraqi detainees." While they wait to agree compensation, lawyers now want an independent inquiry into the deaths.
I think there were a number of factors, from a lack of training of soldiers properly before they went out, into techniques that could and should be used on civilians that they were detaining. I think that there was too much laxity given to soldiers into the techniques that they were allowed to use. I think the very fundamental, one of the very fundamental issues is how previously banned techniques were brought back into play, which no doubt created this culture of abuse on the ground.
An earlier military court failed to convict anyone of killing Musa. Tim Friend, Al Jazeera, Central London.
For Palestinians, Sunday marks Land Day, and as they do every year, Israeli Arabs will be protesting against the confiscation of Arab land inside of Israel. But for the first time, events will be held in the city of Jaffa, where 500 Arab families have recently received eviction notices. Campaigners will also highlight the issue of Israel's West Bank barrier, which cuts many Palestinians off from their relatives and their farmland. Ayman Muheddin is in Jaffa.
To give you a sense of what Palestinian Land Day is about, I've come here to this neighborhood of Ajami with its quiet streets. This is one of the main neighborhoods in the city of Jaffa where Palestinians say the state of Israel is engaging in a policy of confiscating their land, kicking them out of their houses, and evicting them. This is a Palestinian home that has been now in the same family for decades. The man who currently owns it or lives here was notified 3 weeks ago when he was given a lawsuit that he must provide documentation that he owns the land. Otherwise, he will have to evacuate it, him along his family. Now, he argues he's been living here for decades. His father's lived in the same exact house. Many of the Palestinians that do live here complain that the state is engaging in a policy to change the demographics of those who live here. And you're probably asking yourself why that is. But Palestinians say they're being forced out of their land. They're being forced to leave the houses they've lived in to make way for what you're seeing over there. Those are million-dollar seaside condos, and the state has now cleared many of the land nearby and has begun building these projects. So every year, Palestinians across Israel mark Land Day by holding protests and events to commemorate what they say is a continuation of that policy.
In our top story, a miraculous escape in the Sharhan Negev region today after a Palestinian-fired rocket exploded between a children's house and a nursery school. There were no injuries in the attack on the kibbutz Niram community. The toddlers were outdoors in the yard when the rocket alarm sounded, but the caregivers managed to get them to shelter in time. Property damage was caused. In related news, Palestinians fired 2 more rockets at southern communities, as well as 6 mortar shells. In other news, hundreds of residents from Jaffa and its neighboring areas took part in a ceremony marking Land Day, along with Arab population leaders and peace activists. Land Day commemorates the anniversary of demonstrations and rioting by Israeli Arabs throughout the country in 1976, during which 6 people were killed by security forces. The spark for the initial confrontation was incitement by Arab-Israeli leaders over the implementation of an Israeli law granting the state eminent domain over lands abandoned by Arab residents. A large police force guarded the area today in an effort to prevent disturbances. Egyptian intelligence chief Omar Suleiman is expected in Israel next week to discuss Egypt's ongoing role in seeking a ceasefire in Gaza. This, according to the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. The paper reports that in his recent talks in Washington, Suleiman won U.S. approval for his efforts to achieve a reconciliation between Fatah and Hamas. Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice is set to land here tomorrow night for a round of talks aimed at revitalizing the faltering peace talks between Israel and Fatah. Rice is expected to pressure both sides to live up to their roadmap commitments. Both Israel and the Palestinians are bracing for a series of tough meetings with the U.S. Secretary of State. Defense Minister Ehud Barak is set to hold 3-way talks with Rice and PA Prime Minister Salam Fayyad, whom Barak met with earlier this week at his Tel Aviv home. Arab League foreign ministers gathered in Damascus have announced that they will relaunch the 2002 Arab-Israeli Peace Initiative, drafted by Saudi Arabia and adopted by the Arab League. At the opening of the gathering, Syria's foreign minister, Walid al-Muallim, had hinted that the League might reconsider its initiative if Israel did not prove its intention of establishing peace in the Middle East. However, Mohammed Spey, the Arab League Assistant Secretary General for Palestinian Affairs, told reporters that the ministers had in fact agreed on maintaining the Arab Peace Initiative and stressed that they have no intention of amending it. Several leading Arab nations chose not to send their foreign ministers to the meeting in Damascus, preferring to dispatch lower-level representatives, this to protest Syria's continuing intervention in Lebanon's internal affairs.
It's financial support to the Palestinian people and political support. This is what we expected and this is what we got. We are satisfied with the outcome so far. And, this summit has really confirmed, as I said, the centrality of the Palestinian issue to all the Arabs, and this is exactly what we have really got so far.
The Iraqi Foreign Minister Hoshyar Zebari said that the 20th Arab Summit is very significant because Damascus remains the throbbing heart of the Arab nation. Mr. Zebari also spoke about bilateral relations between the two countries and the Iraqi paper, which is to be submitted to the Arab Summit tomorrow.
Pleased about the draft resolution on Iraq that covers most of Iraqi needs and demands at the current phase of political and security development. And there was a great understanding during the ministerial meeting to accommodate the Iraqi needs. I think the resolution calls for a more active Arab role in Iraq to reopen their embassies and missions, to condemn terrorism, to cooperate on helping the Iraqi government to defeat terrorist activities. It also emphasized the need for national reconciliation in the country, and we are pleased, in fact, about the outcome of this resolution on Iraq. Our relations are developing, in fact. After the restoration of the diplomatic relation, there has been a stream of visitors, of leaders to Damascus, and our embassies have opened. Soon we will name ambassadors to represent us, and recently also we agreed to reopen our consulate in Aleppo, Iraqi consulate there, to care for the needs of Iraqi community here.
And fellow gentlemen, alongside the meetings of the Arab Foreign Ministers, a meeting was held yesterday evening between the Yemeni Foreign Minister Abu Bakr al-Qurabi and the Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Malki. In a statement to our correspondent, Mr. Qurabi spoke about the Yemeni initiative for the Palestinian Accords.
Fatah and Hamas have met in Yemen, and they've signed a Sana'a declaration which stressed their acceptance of the Yemeni initiative, and they look at it as a framework for negotiation to return with the situation in the Palestinian territories to what it was before the events which happened last June in Gaza. So we hope that this initiative will be now taken over by the Arab League and become an Arab initiative rather than a Yemen initiative.
On Tuesday, the government of Fawad al-Senura decided to boycott the Arab Summit. One day after Wednesday's MP press conference, the March 14th coalition issued a memorandum addressed to the Damascus summit. The memo was filled with accusations against Syria and the Lebanese opposition. It is said that this summit will be the biggest failure in the history of Arab summits.
This summit will be the biggest failure in the history of Arab summits.
The March 14th coalition prejudged the results of the Arab summit as a failure. During a press conference held at the Bristol Hotel, the General Assembly March 14th coalition waged a vicious campaign against Syria and the Lebanese opposition. They prepared a memo to send out to the Arab and international public. The memo, or rather the list of accusations against Syria, included terrorizing what they referred to as the independent forces, undermining Lebanese sovereignty, obstructing the International Tribunal, working on dismantling the Lebanese government, and disrupting internal peace. The coalition accused the Lebanese opposition of carrying out a coup on the constitution and its organizations. They also blamed them for the presidential void and for derailing the economy.
One way or another, this regime serves the satanic Israeli-Iranian alliance. In other words, today's deep Arab divide, which the Syrian regime plays a large role in creating, serves non-Arab powers. The opposition carried out the instructions of the Syrian regime to halt the presidential elections by tying it up with the securement of the two-thirds quota in the parliament. They also threatened the ruling majority with imminent evil if a president was elected by an absolute majority vote.
Afterwards, the General Assembly March 14th coalition presented a collection of demands to friendly countries that support Lebanon. The demands were not free from accusations against Syria and the opposition. Those who created the majority's memo to the Damascus summit wanted to make it into a list of accusations against the Syrian regime. The memo will be distributed to countries in the European Union and to the 5 permanent members of the National Security Council. It includes a full review of the failed Arab and Western initiatives in the Lebanese arena. From the Bristol Hotel, this is Rana Awada, NBN.
The Development and Liberation Bloc stood in the face of the negativity and stiffness of the Riviera Declaration by a number of majority MPs. The bloc affirmed to the Lebanese public that the majority had taken all the negative steps that hindered the presidential elections and the initiatives. The bloc emphasized that the parliament doors are closed only in the face of a government that disobeys the constitution.
Get more news about the Middle East online at linktv.org/Mosaic. The Mosaic webpage offers a complete archive of Mosaic programs, program transcripts, the Mosaic video podcast, and the Mosaic Intelligence Report, a weekly analysis of the hottest stories from the Middle East. The views expressed on Mosaic are those of the participating broadcasters, not Link TV or its sponsors. The production of Mosaic is made possible with the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jamal Dajani, producer of Mosaic. I'm coming to you today to ask for your help in keeping Mosaic and Link TV alive. Right now, we're having our Spring Pledge Drive, and there are so many ways to support Link. Go online and make a donation at linktv.org. When you click on the green support button, you'll get to look at all the different gift packs. We have some great films during this drive, including some new releases about the war in Iraq, like No End in Sight by Charles Ferguson, and Private Armies, an expose in the use of mercenaries in Iraq. Like Mosaic, these films explore the hidden parts of the war in Iraq, the missing pieces in the discussions that we hear in the mainstream media. If these missing pieces are as important to you as they are to me, then please pledge as much as you can. The number is 1-866-485-8848. We need to reach our goal to continue this work. Mosaic cannot be made anywhere else. The good news is that many of you have answered our appeal and generously contributed. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. But if you're still undecided about your support, think about this. How many times have you wanted to urge a family member or a friend to watch Mosaic or stream one of our shows on the web so that they can see what CNN or Fox didn't tell them? Or maybe you've relied on the 4-minute Mosaic intelligence report to summarize the different newscasts you hear every night. If that's the case, then you already know the value of Mosaic and Link TV. Call Link TV now at 1-866-485-8848 or log on to linktv.org. Any amount helps, from $5 to $500. Call, log on, donate any way you feel comfortable, but do it now. Thanks.
When you support Link TV, we have dozens of ways to thank you. Become a sustaining supporter to make automatic contributions in any amount that works for you. Just have your credit card ready to set them up. Make it $20 or more, and we'll thank you with the latest in Link TV gear, this convenient duffel bag. Here's another way to spread the word. Send these beautiful cards to friends who would love Link TV. We'll mail them to you in thanks for a $50 tax-deductible contribution today. When you double that to $100, we'll also send you the new Link TV travel mug. Show off your support for independent media like Mosaic over a hot beverage. Give us a call or go online. You can also mail a check. The address is P.O. Box 2008, San Francisco, California, 94126. Include a note about the gifts you prefer, or put simply, no gifts please. That way 100% of your contribution goes directly to what you value most, the programs here on Link TV.
This program was brought to you by Link TV for educational and non-commercial use only. Link TV is the only U.S. television network devoted to global and national news, with uncompromising documentaries and diverse cultural programs. Programs which connect you to the world.